Go on, PB time. 2. You got feet still. Yep. Welcome back to the Body Part series, and in this episode, we're going to be diving into chest and shoulders, and specifically how to maximize your bench press, your shoulder press, and your lateral raises. If you ever wanted to grow your chest and shoulders or get them stronger, this episode is a must watch. As always, please hit subscribe, share it with your family and friends, and if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below. Cool, so let's dive into it. We're gonna kick off with the bench press. Common mistakes, best ways to optimize it so you can feel your chest, triceps, and shoulders. Ed's gonna be using me as a dummy on this one, so I'll do my best to demonstrate.
So bench press we're going to start off with. So main muscles we're going to be working here is going to be your chest. You're also going to get some of the front of your shoulders going to be working and the back of your arms to your triceps. So when we're getting set with bench press, we want to make sure that the bar is set at around straight arm length from your body. So we don't want to be picking it up straight from us. Likewise, we don't want to be having to stand up to try and pick up that bar. So if Akash then lies back, we're going to try and set the bar underneath there. So it's about eye height, about in line with his eyes. And then, like I said, pretty much straight arms. If we have completely locked arms, it's going to be quite hard to then unlock it. But if there's a slight bend in the elbow, you're probably going to be good. So I actually did this for me, not Akash's monkey arms. So when we get set, we want to make sure we've got a really good base of support. So feet are going to go out to the sides and then heels underneath your knees. Now, this doesn't have to be 100% locked in stone, but we want to make sure we are as secure and stable as possible. If we think about taking feet off the floor or starting to move them around, that's going to make it really unstable. And if we're trying to be really strong as we're pressing, the last thing we want is instability from there. So making sure we got heels under knees is a great place to start. And then with him lying down, Akash is going to think about bringing your shoulders down. So like the reverse of a shrug. You've got shoulders up by your ears, you're going to push them down and then squeeze them together. So if you think about squeezing those shoulder blades together, as you do that, your chest is probably then going to start to rise up a little bit. So this does a couple of things. One, it puts your shoulders in a nice stable position. So it means that it's not going to be kind of moving around and like we're talking about with the feet, really unstable. But it's also, as your chest comes up, it's going to bring your pecs, so your chest muscles, above your shoulders. And this is going to make it easier for your chest to do the majority of the work. So if you lie really flat or you start having your shoulders above you and you're trying to press, your shoulders are going to do a lot more of the work. If you bring your chest up, and so your chest is higher than your shoulders, your pecs are then going to be doing a lot more of the work that you're doing on that. So as you're pressing, you may find shoulder blades move a little bit, and that's going to be absolutely fine. But what we want to avoid is that excessive movement or really reaching out and kind of moving around too much on that. So once we're in a nice set position, Akash is going to get his hands on the bar. We're going to aim to have a position that has his wrists over his elbows at the bottom of the rep. So you may find the first time you take it out, it's slightly off, or you're a bit too close, a bit too wide. That's absolutely fine. What you can then do, if you go to the bottom, you see you're a bit too wide, you can come to the top and just bring it in slightly more. So if Akash just gets into a position we think is going to be good, he's then going to straighten his arms to bring the bar out the rack, and then he's just going to bring it slightly forward there, so it's just not going to hit these JPEGs. From there, Akash is going to bring the bar down towards his chest, aiming for the bottom of his sternum. So we've got a rib cage, we can all probably feel like that bottom part of it. That's going to be a really good rough guide of where we're going to be aiming. So we start with our hands basically eye level. That's going to mean that instead of going straight back down on us, we're coming down towards our feet, but basically ending up with that bar just above your sternum. That's going to stop you, one, from hitting the pegs, but it's also going to mean the bottom of the rep, you just come down to the bottom, you're going to end up with around 45-degree angle at your shoulder. Now, anywhere between probably 45 to 90 is probably going to be acceptable and fine for training your chest. The further you got to 90, just anecdotally, that's where more of those shoulder niggles happen. So I think the closer you come to 45, it's probably just a safe zone for most people, and you're still going to get loads of pack. If you come really close to your sides, you're then going to find you're getting loads more movement at your elbow rather than your shoulder, and it turns into more of a tricep exercise on that. So around 45 is going to be perfect. So if Akash just comes to the bottom of the rep again, the main things we're looking at, just go to the bottom, is that position of elbow and wrist in line with each other, and about 45 degrees with his upper arm away from his sides. And then press back up, straight arms at the top. Once you finish your set, You then just move the bar backwards and then down back into the JPEGs there. In terms of common mistakes, the most common start with the feet. And that's, as I alluded to earlier, that moving feet around or bringing your feet up off the floor. When it gets tough, you're going to want to start wriggling and all this. All that's going to do is make you weaker and more likely to get injured. So we want to keep those feet planted the whole time. Next one moving up is then going to be your bum coming off the floor.
Just on the feet. Remember, your power comes from here. The power comes from pushing through the floor. So in powerlifting, in the sport of powerlifting, when you're trying to lift when you're trying to do the best bench possible, they talk a lot about driving as hard as you can into the floor. And when you start turning into a tap dancing endeavor, which is very, very common, you're losing a lot of power and it becomes a big energy leak for the body. So really focus as much as you can on driving it as hard as you can, okay? Cool. Do you want those demo hips coming off the bench? Cool, so. It's hard to do it wrong.
You'll find that it actually makes it feel a lot easier. But what it's doing is basically turning like a flat press into a decline press. Or if you're training at an incline, you bring your hips up enough, you're then doing a flat press. So basically it puts you into a mechanically stronger position. So it's really good if you just want to move weight from A to B. But if you actually want to challenge your pecs or whatever the muscle is in that particular exercise, you don't want to start making it easier. You want to keep that form locked in. So every rep is then the same exercise. Otherwise you're doing 5 reps of bench press and then 3 reps of decline press, almost into the same set. Also on that, it's going to be, again, make you potentially less stable and potentially then more in risk of injury. The other probably most common issue we see is then going to be the depth of your press. So you can go either way on here, basically. To find your ideal bench press depth, I would recommend doing it without even a bar to start off with, just getting set as we did, having your hands up, and then just pulling yourself down inside that bottom position of a rep. So if I come down here, imagine I've got a bar in my hand. I'm going to finish up about here, so it's about an inch or 2 off my chest. If I was to go any deeper and say touch my chest or even go deeper, I'm going to have to start moving from other places. So maybe my wrist and elbow can't line up anymore, or I'm going to have to start dumping my shoulder forward to get there. So although physically I can get my hand to that position, we've got movement coming from places we don't want. Now, you can do that when you've got loads of weight on the bar. That's not going to be a problem. Put 100 kilos on there. You can relax, and it can probably go way beyond you. But again, that's probably not going to be best long-term for your health. The other side of the equation, though, is not going deep enough. So with the bench press, the bottom position, whatever that is for you, is going to be the most effective for a muscle building and strength perspective. So it's going to be the hardest. You're going to be weakest. It's going to be the most challenging. But this position here is going to be where you're getting the most bang for your buck. So if you're only coming down halfway and you're just doing these little reps, it looks great for the logbook. So you can probably put like 200 kilos on and just do that here. But in terms of progress, it doesn't look good. And everyone else in the gym thinks you're an idiot, right? So what I would say is once you've done that little test to see how that feels, hold that position, see how your upper arm is in comparison to the bench. Maybe your tricep is touching the side of the bench. Maybe it's a little bit deeper. Start to get a feel for what that bottom position feels like. So as you start to put more weight on over the course of your warm-up sets, you're just keeping that really consistent. And so whatever that top weight is for you is exactly the same as when you had no weight on the bar at all.
Oh, any questions on the bench press?
So if you go to the good position, that's a good question actually, OP. So if we've already said we're going to keep feet on the bench, we're going to keep hips on the bench, and we said we want shoulder blades down and back with that chest elevated. So as you do that, that is going to create an arch for your lower back. So we think of our points of contact as our shoulders and our hips. They're on the bench. Everything in between there is probably just going to be creating a slight arch in there. Now, the arch you achieve is going to be pretty dependent on your body, basically, even flexibility, size of your rib cage, all these kind of things. But that your lower back isn't going to be flush. It's going to be kind of up there. Now, it's going to be quite a different position to say when we recommend doing squats or deadlifts or anything like that. But with a squat, whereas the weight's going straight through your spine, we're almost on a different position to it. So it's really safe. It's not going to hurt your back getting into that position on a pressing movement.
Yeah, go for it.
When you're at the top position,
yeah.
how far do you fully extend the arms? I feel like when I do it, fully extend and my shoulder blades come a bit more forward, and then when I'm getting back down, it's hard to keep the shoulder blades pressing. So how far do you?
I personally go to like there. I never like fully extend. You don't want to hyperextend and pull your shoulder blades out of your socket. So if I was to show it,
So I think there's basically two movements
You want to go to
on there. If you come to the top of the rep, you can fully extend your elbow, but what we're wanting to avoid is if what's probably happening when you do that is also protracting, so like reaching forward.
You want to avoid this. And I think that something like that is easier to do on dumbbells as well. Like, I find a lot of people just kind of do this with their dumbbells. You want to keep that shoulder blade in the right position. Otherwise, you expose your shoulder to so many issues.
I'd say if, in the meantime, if you find extending your elbow also comes with protraction, you're struggling to separate them, I would just, as Akash said, stop slightly short. As we said, like the bottom part of that movement's where all the magic's going to happen. This top bit is almost like a formality. So if you drop the top inch, it's not going to make any difference. And then if it keeps you in that better shoulder position, then that's fine. Yeah.
Any other bench press questions? Remember, all the principles we made out here are all relevant to dumbbell variations. So the same thing applies if you haven't got the actual barbell bench in your workout. Nice. You just want to lower it like here. Remember, you want to aim for this around here. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Perfect. Guys, a really good tip when you're benching is to squeeze the bar as hard as you can. Like you should see your like knuckles going white. Bring it all the way up. Lock the bar up. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Stay there. Just pretend you're gonna bench. Yeah. Yeah. You see that? You should. I shouldn't be able to move you. Yeah. You want to be able to push. You want to push in the ground as hard as you can. As soon as you get to the bottom of the rep, drive hard into the ground, and the power will come up through your body. Yeah. Nice work, David. First step, there's many ways to do a shoulder press, standing, seated, machine, etc. The principles apply to all of them. So the first step is you want to bring the bench up as much to upright as you can. For some of you, if you can't press straight up, then you can slightly put it on a high incline. But for Ed, you should be fine with the upright. I'm going to grab the dumbbells. And then it's a very basic press from, we'll kick it up to the shoulders, which we'll talk about in a second. And then simply press up. And you notice when he presses to the top, his arms are completely perpendicular to the floor. So it's a straight line. He's not doing this. Bring the other one forward. He's not pushing out in front. He's pushing straight up ahead. Okay. His back staying back against the pad, and his feet are firm in the floor. So just like with the bench press, you want to keep your feet really planted into the floor and press up in a straight line. Come down. That's it. And repeat. Just do a couple of reps to show. Perfect. So you want to control it on the way down and press straight up. Is that clear? Okay, so an immediate problem that many of us will face is kicking the dumbbells up into position. Sometimes actually getting the dumbbells into position is harder than actually doing the rep itself. So what we're going to talk about is the kicking up method. So when you've got heavy dumbbells and you get to the point where you can't just like muscle your way up, you need to kick the dumbbells up using your leg strength. So just demonstrate like a kicking up method. Yeah. Yeah. Very robotic. But effectively, you are, literally what he did, but in faster motion, and then press down. Yeah. And then just show it again for ease. Just show the kick up method again. There you go. So you're just using your leg strength to get into position, and then you press up straight. The two biggest mistakes we see are in insufficient depth, where you might press up and then you bring it down to like there. This is probably the biggest mistake we see. And if you're doing that, you're going to miss out on a lot of shoulder stimulus. So the first thing to correct for the most part is just bringing it down to your shoulders. The second thing is pushing out in front of you. So I briefly showed you earlier, but Ed, if you just show it again, it's just pushing out straight in front. Now this is typically either due to lack of flexibility or just unawareness of where you're pressing. Most part is the latter, but if it is a flexibility issue, then you can just simply go on a higher incline. For example, go here potentially. There will be a bit more upper chest on this, but you're still going to get the delts working hard. And the same principle applies where at the top, the arm is straight down. Clear? Any questions on the shoulder press? Yeah, the optimum wrist position is neutral. So you want to be in here. So just like we talked about earlier with the bench, where the forearm's going to be stacked against the elbow, you want the wrist to be stacked against the forearm. And that's the same with the bench as well. A common issue we see is when people bench like this, or they press in anything where their wrists are flimsy, you lose a lot of power that way. Yep. Yeah, ideally you want it as high. The reason why we just put it there, just if people do have flexibility issues where they can't press up no matter what, then you can put it down a high incline. But ideally you want it as high up as possible. Yeah. And then you just want to keep yourself back and avoid turning it into an incline naturally. So just like move your hips forward. Yeah. You want to avoid this scenario because then you're just turning it into a high incline.
That can be though, if you're doing a machine which is set straight up. So if you're in a machine and it's set to 90 degrees, which some of them are, and they don't allow you to lean back, and you find you're unable to press straight up, you can then bring your bum slightly further forward. If you're off the front of the seat, it's probably just not going to be a good machine for you, but if it's just a couple of inches, it can mean instead of pressing forwards, you're able just to line up a little bit on that. It should never happen with a bench though, because you can adjust it for yourself.
Yeah, Kieran.
You being down, what's the kind of the ideal depth that you can get? How do you know what's good for you?
You probably want to go as far down as you can. To about here, yeah. So about there. So just show up again.
It's keeping your forearm straight up to the sky, basically. So it's the same premise as the bench press when we're talking. You'll find a position, you can do it without any weights. If you come to the bottom, so that for me is going to be the bottom. If I want to go any lower, I'm going to have to either start moving here or start moving here again. As long as your forearm is straight up to the sky, that's good.
That's not an excuse for insufficient depth, though.
Yeah, but that means you can do that test before. And for some people, it might be lower than me, but for other people, it might be slightly higher on that. But as long as that's staying the same, you do that warm up. That's my depth, and that stays the same. However much weight I put in my hands, then you're all good.
Another common mistake we see is flaring your elbows too much as well. So if you just go up, just do it with that. Yeah, you don't want to be out here with you doing shoulder presses. Just keep it again in this position here, rather than overly flaring. Okay. Any other questions on the shoulder press? Yeah, good question. So if you're on a more upright angle like this is, you don't want to be doing excessively. You don't want to be doing that when you're pressing. You want to be a bit more natural, sort of in a neutral position with your shoulder blades, as opposed to sort of retracting. Okay, watch out for overly flaring your elbows. Bring it down. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You don't go too far wide out, yeah? All right, so just come up straight, straight. Yeah, perfect. You see here, like even though he's got an incline, his arms are still straight, he's still pressing straight. So if you're doing like 45-degree presses or anything like that, you always want to have that straight line. And then don't touch them at the top, No, just stay here, it's fine. So you don't want to bring them together, you want to keep them out together.
So with lateral raise, this is something that's probably in most of your programs, and this is going to be something that's going to train your medial or your side delt, so basically the sides of your shoulders. This is a muscle that's relatively small, but if you can create a bit more size in it, it can make your physique look pretty different by just making your shoulders look a bit wider. By virtue of that, your waist then looks a little bit thinner. So whether you're male or female, most people are just kind of looking for that hourglass or like V shape or X frame, whatever it is. So this is one that is really common in programs and is going to be really well hit with a lateral raise. So it's basically moving your upper arm away from your side. So Akash is going to go with chest supported. Again, just like with the tricep extension variation we use, by being chest supported just means you don't have to worry about stabilizing as much. You're nice and locked in, and you can just work hard on just pushing your arms out to the side, basically, on there. Same cues are going to be the same for all of the variations, though. So as we start at the bottom, we're going to have arms straight. They don't have to be 100% locked, but we want to avoid a massive bend in here, okay? So I think locked out can be a nice way to start, but if you're comfortable keeping a slight bend and you can maintain that throughout the set, that's absolutely fine. What we want to avoid is starting straight, and then by the end, we're at like 90 degrees on there. From there, we want to make sure that the dumbbells are just slightly away from our side. So because the muscle's on the side here, as soon as your arm hangs straight down, it's doing nothing at all there, right? It's completely resting. As soon as you move that upper arm away from your side, it's going to have to do something to keep it there. So that's going to be your bottom position, and your top position is going to be, as Akash pushes out to the side, around 90 degrees. Now, if you go slightly above 90 degrees, it's not the end of the world. In fact, it may even be beneficial for some people. But if you go much beyond it, Depends on the individual, but a lot of people then start to get some pretty creaky shoulders. So where things start to pinch a little bit, it probably doesn't feel so nice. So some people can come all the way up, no issues at all. We've all got different shoulders. Some people may come to 90 degrees and even find that a little bit uncomfortable. So 90 degrees is a nice little guideline, and you're gonna just work within that kind of range from there. Now, as you'll just go again, sorry, in there. You'll see Akash actually gone out to the side, but also slightly in front as well. For most people, this is just gonna help get that side delt on top, so facing up to the sky. So in this situation, whatever muscle's on top is gonna be what's doing the work. And so by ensuring this side of his shoulder is up facing the sky, it means we're gonna keep it on the muscle we want. So we don't want right out in front, otherwise it's gonna change it onto the front of our shoulder. But if we think out to the side, slightly forward, within that kind of area, it's probably gonna be good for most of us. A nice cue to think about is instead of getting hands up to the sky, it's thinking about hands out to touch the walls either side. So if we think about going up, it's really easy then to start shrugging and turning it into like a trap exercise where we get all of this working as well. Now, it's not the end of the world if you want big traps as well, but if we're trying to target that side of the shoulder, we want to think about just keeping shoulders fairly relaxed and just getting hands out to the side as much as we can on that.
Yeah. One thing for many of you, you may not be able to actually do it with this setup in your gym just because of gym availability for the bench. So if you're doing it seated or standing, what you want to avoid is, again, just when you see this, where it becomes a bit of a momentum lift, you want to try and discipline yourself to be as still as possible and only moving out with the same cues that Ed just mentioned. Okay, so slightly out in front of you with nothing else moving. Avoid that. Any questions on lateral raises? Go for it. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I wouldn't do something like this. You don't want to do that. Where you want to be is just slightly there. You used to hear the old thing where people used to talk about pouring the water in. Do you remember that? Pouring the water into the plant like that, but I don't think you need to exaggerate it. Just a very slight, like here.
So as we mentioned before, we want that side delt to be on top the whole time. So if you do end up going like thumb first, like you mentioned, you're actually going to rotate and bring that front delt on top. And although it's out to the side, it's going to be a front delt raise. If you went crazy in here, you could actually turn it into a rear delt one. But if you bring that back of your hand up, think about biasing that little finger slightly higher.
You see my little finger is very slightly ahead.
That's probably going to be good for most people to keep that side delt on top.
And also the other thing, so important point that Ed mentioned is slightly in front of you as well. You want to avoid like here. Like this is not, you're not trying to squeeze your shoulder blades here. So you don't want to be directly in the plane because otherwise all you'll feel is your traps in your upper back. You want to be slightly out in front. That'd be the more natural movement for it. You'd be bent over. You'd be bent over.
So yeah, I mean, if you did, I don't think anyone does this, but if you really internally rotated and you end up basically with this on top, you could end up having a bit of a weird one there.
Which is why people bend over to do rear delts, because that suddenly goes on top.
I would say anywhere from about there to there is probably good, and you just need to find what you like the most. But then just pushing out, there you go, that's nice. Good, and just think about pushing as wide as you can rather than up. Nice, Polly, these are good. That's nice, keep chest on the bench. Again,
Going.
Get that little finger up, get that little finger up, guys.
Good rest there. Final set, it's going to go standing. Remember, pinky's slightly on top. Last one.
If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit subscribe, share it with a friend. If you want to take the next step in your transformation journey, book a call with our enrollment coach by clicking the link in the description below. Can't wait to hear from you and seeing your transformation go to the next level.